What happens when an arrogant principal forces a shy black student to perform a violin solo as punishment, unaware that she is the daughter of a musical prodigy? "I don't know how to play," Jasmine protested, her voice trembling as Principal Veronica Stevens coldly placed the instrument into her shaking hands. "Then you'd better learn quickly," Stevens sneered, eagerly anticipating the moment Jasmine would be humiliated in front of the entire school. But when Jasmine's hidden talent begins to emerge, no one, least of all the cruel principal, is prepared for what happens next. A story of malicious intentions turned into a stunning triumph of courage, resilience, and hidden talent that will leave you breathless until the very last moment. "Silence!" Principal Stevens' voice rang out, sharp and commanding, her eyes scanning the student body like a hawk. She wore an elegant, cream-colored suit, her perfectly styled blonde hair in stark contrast to the cold, unfeeling expression on her face. Jasmine Williams stood at the back of the auditorium, her body tense and her eyes weary. She couldn't sit down due to a sharp pain shooting through her back, a lingering consequence of an accident she tried to hide. But to Principal Stevens it was a public challenge. "Jasmine Williams." The principal's voice cut through the air like a thunderclap. Instantly, the auditorium fell silent as every student turned to look at Jasmine, their eyes full of curiosity and eager anticipation for the spectacle. "Why aren't you sitting with the others? Do you think you're somehow special?" Stevens raised an eyebrow, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Jasmine shivered, her face flushing with embarrassment and fear. I'm sorry, Miss Stevens, I can't sit down right now." A few chuckles rippled through the auditorium, and the other students looked at Jasmine with disdain, none of them caring about the real reason behind her words. Principal Stevens strode swiftly toward Jasmine, her heels clicking sharply, each step a threat. Her gaze landed on the violin of Aisha Robinson, Jasmine's best friend, leaning against the wall beside her. "Is this your violin?" Stevens asked, her tone turning malicious. "No, Miss Stevens, it's Aisha's. I'm just holding it for her," Jasmine replied, trying to stay calm. An evil smile briefly flickered across the principal's face. She bent down, picked up the violin, and thrust it toward Jasmine. "Well then, Miss Williams, to make up for your arrogant attitude today, I demand you perform a violin solo at the upcoming spring concert, a performance that lasts at least 3 minutes." Laughter and murmurs erupted throughout the auditorium. Everyone knew Jasmine had never played the violin, had never even touched one. This was clearly a cruel joke designed to humiliate her. Jasmine felt her face burn, her heart pounding in her chest as the mocking laughter surrounded her from all sides. She weakly shook her head. "But I've never played before, Miss Stevens. I can't do it." Stevens' voice grew colder than ever, like an unavoidable verdict. "Then I suggest you learn quickly, Jasmine. Either you perform in front of the entire school, or you sit in detention for the entire semester. Do you understand?" Jasmine trembled as she took the violin from the principal's hands. Stevens turned and walked away with a satisfied look on her face, leaving the young girl standing alone, abandoned in the middle of the auditorium, surrounded by the stares of her classmates. As the students began to leave the auditorium, Jasmine stood frozen, clutching the violin to her chest, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill. "This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me," she whispered, her heart heavy with shame and helplessness. But little did Jasmine know, at this very moment of bitterness and despair, an extraordinary journey was about to begin, one that would lead her to a bright future and change not only her life, but the entire prestigious Westridge School. When the bell signaling the end of the assembly rang, Jasmine quickly rushed out of the auditorium, trying to avoid the probing eyes of her schoolmates. Each step felt like 1,000 needles piercing her back, but Jasmine bit her lip, hiding the pain beneath an outwardly calm facade. That wound was the reason she couldn't sit during the assembly, and it was also the secret she had decided to keep hidden from everyone, at least for now. It all started with yesterday's English class, under the strict supervision of Mrs. Rachel Reynolds. Mrs. Reynolds was not only notorious for her harshness, but also for her clear and blatant discrimination towards students like Jasmine. Every word she spoke was filled with malice and prejudice, but no one dared to speak up, given the power she wielded through her close relationship with Principal Stevens. That day, Jasmine had arrived a few minutes late as the previous teacher's lecture ran over. When she entered the room, she politely apologized and explained, but Mrs. Reynolds didn't even glance up. "Sit at the back, Williams," Reynolds said coldly, her eyes still fixed on the book in front of her. "You've disturbed the class enough already." Jasmine looked around and realized the only empty seat at the back was an old chair, its backrest broken. A sharp metal piece jutted out from the edge of the chair, but fearing more reprimands, Jasmine closed her eyes and sat down, trying to avoid the damaged part. Mrs. Reynolds, noticing Jasmine's hesitation, walked up with a thin smile on her face. "Is there a problem, Williams? Can't even sit in a simple chair?" "Excuse me, the chair is—" Jasmine tried to explain nervously, but Reynolds wouldn't let her finish. "Stop making excuses. I'm fed up with students like you," she snapped. With that, Reynolds suddenly pressed down on Jasmine's shoulder, forcing her to sit fully in the chair. Jasmine flinched as the sharp metal piece immediately pierced through her thin shirt, cutting into her skin. A sharp pain spread quickly, and she couldn't hold back a scream. "Trying to cause trouble again, huh?" Reynolds mocked, her gaze filled with cruelty. "Get out of my class right now." "But, Miss Reynolds, the chair—" Jasmine trembled, trying to point out the issue, but Reynolds turned sharply and shouted, "No more words. Get out of here and head to the principal's office now." With the wound still bleeding, Jasmine trudged to the principal's office. Upon arriving, the secretary informed her that Mrs. Stevens was in a meeting and asked her to wait in the hallway. Jasmine sat in the chair outside the office, her heart heavy with pain and humiliation. She waited for 2 hours, the blood from her injury now dried and forming a dark stain, but no one came to help or even check on her. When the bell for the end of the day rang, Jasmine stood up and walked away in despair. She returned home in silence, hiding the injury from her mother, knowing that if she found out she wouldn't let it go. Jasmine feared that telling her would only make everything worse. That evening, Jasmine went into the bathroom and carefully cleaned the long, deep wound on her lower back. Every time the cloth touched her skin, tears silently streamed down her face, but she kept her mouth shut, not allowing a single sob to escape. Looking into the mirror, she saw the image of a small, frightened girl, but one who was resilient. She whispered to herself that she wouldn't let people like Reynolds and Stevens hurt her anymore. But then, on this fateful morning, Principal Stevens once again pushed Jasmine to the brink of despair. The feelings of fear, shame, and helplessness seemed to suffocate her heart with each passing moment. Jasmine knew deep down that in order to escape this darkness, she had to find a way to protect herself, or at least stop them from hurting her again. On her way home that day, Jasmine walked in silence, each step weighed down by the pain of both physical and emotional wounds. Principal Stevens' mocking words still echoed clearly in her mind, like invisible cuts deep in her heart, making the young girl feel small and powerless against the frightening cruelty of adults who seemed so trustworthy. When she arrived home, Jasmine hurried into her bedroom, gently closing the door behind her, then slowly slid down to sit on the cold floor. She wrapped her arms around her knees, allowing the tears she had held back all day to flow silently. Jasmine didn't want her mother to find out, knowing how heartbroken she would be if she knew what had happened to her daughter. But the small room suddenly felt too suffocating, and Jasmine stood up, opening the closet door to change out of her school uniform that now carried so many humiliating memories. At that moment, an old box placed deep in the corner of the closet fell, spilling out old photographs onto the floor. Jasmine bent down, gently picking up each photo, and in an instant her heart seemed to stop when she saw a familiar picture she hadn't thought of in years, the photo of her late father, Michael Williams. In the picture, her father smiled brightly, holding a violin lovingly. Jasmine had never known her father played the violin, as her mother had never mentioned it, not even once. All she vaguely remembered about her beloved father was that he had passed away when she was just 7 years old, leaving an irreplaceable void in their small family. On the photo, now yellowed with age, her father looked so happy, as if he were completely lost in the melody of the violin. Jasmine flipped the photo over and saw the faint but clear handwriting of her mother. Michael, at his final concert, Eastman School. I wish he hadn't had to give up his passion. Those words pierced Jasmine's mind, stirring up a flood of questions. She quickly left the room with the photo, running downstairs to the living room, where her mother, Grace Williams, sat quietly knitting. "Mom," Jasmine spoke, her voice trembling. "Did Dad play the violin?" Grace looked up at her daughter, surprised to see the photo in Jasmine's hands. Her eyes grew a little sad as she looked back at the image of her late husband. "Yes, darling," she answered softly, her gaze drifting into the distance as if lost in thought. "Your father was a musical prodigy. When he was young, he received a full scholarship to the Eastman School of Music. But then, life became difficult, and when I was pregnant with you, he had to make the decision to give up his dream to take care of our family." Jasmine sat down beside her mother, her heart aching. She never imagined that the father she cherished, the one she always remembered with a gentle smile and warm hands, had to sacrifice his greatest passion for her and for their family. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," Grace said softly, placing a hand on Jasmine's shoulder, her eyes tender as she looked at her daughter. "I was afraid it would make you sad and feel guilty. But you know, your father always believed that music had chosen him, and he hoped that one day you would carry on the dream he left behind." Jasmine looked deeply into her mother's eyes, feeling a strange stirring in her heart. Every word her mother spoke was like a small but intense light, shining into the darkness within her. "Do you think I can do it, Mom?" Jasmine whispered, her voice filled with doubt and hope. "I've never played music. Can I inherit Dad's talent?" Her mother smiled gently, her hand softly wiping away the last of Jasmine's tears. "You have your father's blood in you, Jasmine. I believe that if you truly want it, you can do it. You're stronger than you think. Believe in yourself, just as your father always believed in you." Jasmine hugged her mother tightly, her heart full of emotion. In that moment, the small girl felt a deep connection to her late father, something she had never truly understood before. The pain, fear, and doubt slowly faded, replaced by a new resolve growing in her heart. And at that moment, Jasmine knew she had to do something to make her father proud, to prove that his sacrifice had never been in vain. She would overcome every challenge to carry on the legacy he left behind, with the very violin that fate had placed in her hands during that fateful morning. As the fading light of the evening streamed through the window, Jasmine sat quietly in her mother's embrace. The small living room became unusually warm, enveloped by the silent empathy between the two women, despite the intense undercurrents of emotion each of them carried within. Grace Williams gazed deeply into her daughter's eyes, recognizing the fragile flicker of hope gradually appearing amidst the ocean of despair. She knew that Jasmine was standing at a major crossroads, a decision that could completely change the course of her life. "Jasmine?" Grace's gentle voice broke the silence. She lifted her daughter's face with her soft yet strong hands, as she had always done to protect Jasmine since her childhood. "I know what happened today hurt you deeply, but remember this: no one and nothing can truly hurt you unless you allow them to." Jasmine looked up at her mother, her eyes still glistening with unshed tears. "But Mom, I've never played the violin. I'm scared I won't be able to do it. I'm afraid I'll disappoint Dad, and everyone will just laugh at me more. Listen to me." Grace's voice was soft, yet resolute. "You are Michael Williams' daughter, the man who fought through so many hardships to protect his family. You are a Williams. That blood runs through your veins, and with it, strength you've yet to discover. Nothing, no one, can bring you down, Jasmine. As long as you believe in yourself, believe in what your father left behind in you." Her mother's words were like a healing balm, each one fortifying Jasmine's resolve. She could feel her heart slowly beating stronger, steadier. In that moment, Jasmine realized that she was no longer alone in this fight. She had her mother, and the memories of her beloved father walking with her. Wiping away her tears, Jasmine took a deep breath to steady herself. "I want to try, Mom," the young girl affirmed, with a confidence she had never felt before. "I want to face this challenge. I won't let people like Principal Stevens and Miss Reynolds continue to look down on me or hurt me again." Grace's eyes shone with deep pride. She nodded gently, offering a soft but resolute smile. "That's right, Jasmine. I've always known how strong you are. Every challenge is just a way for you to discover the true power within yourself." Jasmine stood up and walked over to the small table in the corner of the room, where the violin, given to her by Principal Stevens as a cruel joke, lay. She lifted the instrument, admiring the smooth curves of its body, feeling the weight and strange beauty of it. This would be her new companion, the one she would use to confront all the scorn and injustice she had endured. "Mom," Jasmine turned to her mother, her eyes filled with fierce determination. "No matter what happens, I won't give up. I'll practice day and night. I'll turn this pain into strength. I'll make Dad proud." Grace stepped up beside Jasmine, gently placing her hand on her daughter's shoulder, her touch firm yet loving. "I believe in you, Jasmine, and I'm sure your father is looking down on you from somewhere. Very proud of you." Jasmine smiled softly, the first smile she had given all day, a smile not of despair but of burning resolve. In that moment she knew she had crossed the threshold of fear, stepping into a new journey, a journey to find herself, to reclaim her beloved father's unfinished dream that she had so much respect for. From that moment on, Jasmine Williams was no longer the weak, passive girl who had been subjected to cruel jokes. She had chosen to stand up, to face the challenge Principal Stevens had placed before her, turning it into the greatest opportunity to prove the true worth she held within. That evening, as the streetlights began to illuminate the quiet corners of the small streets, Jasmine sat in her room, gently stroking the violin she had just received from Principal Stevens. Until now, she had always felt the weight of the instrument, burdened with humiliation and ridicule, but now, under the loving gaze and powerful encouragement from her mother, Jasmine suddenly realized that this violin was the key to overcoming her own limits. As she was lost in thought, the phone on the desk vibrated softly. Jasmine glanced at the screen and saw the name of her best friend, Aisha Robinson. Before Jasmine could speak, Aisha's bright, lively voice rang through the phone. "Jazz, I just heard the news. Everyone's talking about it at school today. Are you okay?" Aisha's voice was filled with concern and sincerity, like a cool stream of water flowing through Jasmine's heart. Jasmine hesitated for a moment, then quietly responded, "Honestly, I'm not sure, Aisha. Everything happened so suddenly, but I've made up my mind. I'm going to do this. I will perform at the spring concert." There was a brief pause on the other end, but just seconds later Aisha's voice was full of excitement. "That's amazing, Jazz. You know what? I'm sure you can do it, and I'll help you every step of the way." Jasmine smiled faintly, feeling a bit of the tension lift as she heard her friend's encouragement. "But you know, I've never played the violin before. There are only 10 days left. I don't know if that's enough time." "Listen," Aisha interrupted, her voice stronger than ever. "I know this is really hard, but it's not impossible. I've been playing the violin since I was 6 years old, don't you remember? My mom's the strictest person in the world. I've practiced for years, and there were times I almost gave up, but I pushed through. I'll help you, Jazz. I promise we can do this." Aisha's words felt like a burst of energy, igniting a small flame within Jasmine. She suddenly realized she wasn't alone in this huge challenge. She had Aisha by her side, her childhood friend, who would always stand by her no matter what happened. "I really appreciate you, Aisha, but I don't want to trouble you. You have your own homework, your classes, and your own concert to prepare for," Jasmine said softly, her voice full of hesitation. "Jazz, don't worry about that. This is way more important." Aisha laughed warmly over the phone. "You're my best friend, and you've always been there for me when I needed you. Now, it's my turn to do the same for you. I'll come over to your house right now to start practicing." Just 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang at Jasmine's house. When she opened the door, she saw Aisha's familiar face, her bright smile, and the beloved violin in her hands. Aisha quickly walked in, her eyes immediately landing on Jasmine's violin. "Is this the violin that Principal Stevens gave you?" Aisha asked, her brow furrowing slightly, clearly displeased when she recalled the principal's attitude earlier. Jasmine nodded lightly. "Yeah, that's it." Aisha gently took the violin, running her fingers over its details before sighing. "Well, at least it's a decent instrument. Let's make the most of it and turn their disdain into a stunning surprise." The two girls sat down together on the soft carpet in the middle of Jasmine's living room. The light from the desk lamp gently illuminated their faces, creating a warm and peaceful atmosphere, completely at odds with the storms waiting ahead. "First, you need to learn how to hold the violin," Aisha began, her tone patient, gentle yet firm. "This step is crucial. If your posture is wrong, it will hurt your hands and shoulders, and there's no way you can play well." Jasmine followed her friend's instructions attentively, but every time she positioned the violin on her shoulder, the wound on her back flared up painfully. Aisha quickly noticed the discomfort on Jasmine's face. "Jazz, are you in pain?" Aisha asked, worried. "What's going on?" Jasmine stayed silent for a moment before deciding to explain the situation with the chair in Miss Reynolds' class and the injury she was trying to keep hidden. "Oh my God, Jasmine!" Aisha exclaimed, her face a mix of shock and anger. "You should report this to the school. That's clearly abuse." "No," Jasmine said quickly, her voice more resolute. "I can't do that yet. Principal Stevens will definitely side with Miss Reynolds. I need to get through this challenge first, to show them they can't hurt me anymore." Aisha sat silently for a moment, her eyes filled with empathy. Then she gently patted Jasmine on the shoulder. Okay, I understand. But from now on, every time you practice, we'll take breaks regularly so you don't hurt too much. Your health is the most important thing." The next hours flew by quickly. Aisha carefully guided Jasmine from how to hold the bow to standing posture and even the most basic notes. Every time Jasmine felt discouraged, Aisha immediately encouraged her with a warm smile and sincere words of support. "You know what, Jazz?" Aisha said softly as their first practice session came to an end. "My mom always says that music isn't in the fingers. It's in the heart. As long as you really feel it, everything will start to get easier." Jasmine smiled faintly, her heart full of gratitude for Aisha's help. She knew there were still many challenges ahead, but now she no longer feared them, because she had a true companion by her side, someone who would help her through any difficulty, even with only 10 short days left to prepare. The next morning, as the first light of dawn began to break, Jasmine left her house earlier than usual. Although her body still ached from the injury and the intense violin practice the night before, her heart was filled with a newfound determination and hope. Aisha had promised to meet her at school during lunch to continue practicing. However, Jasmine wanted to have some quiet time to herself, to experiment with what she had just been taught, away from the curious and mocking glances of the other students. Upon arriving at school, Jasmine quietly made her way to the hallway leading to the music room, a place she rarely visited before. The instrumental classes were typically reserved for students who were considered either exceptionally talented or wealthy, and Jasmine had never been seen as one of them. But today was different. Holding the violin in her hands, she gently walked into a small room at the end of the hallway, one that was rarely used by anyone else. The room was so quiet that Jasmine could hear the steady beat of her own heart. She carefully closed the door behind her, placed the violin on her shoulder, and tried to recall everything Aisha had taught her. Taking a deep breath, she drew the bow across the strings, but the sound that emerged was jarring and shrill. She winced and tried again, but the result was no better. Just as Jasmine was about to put the violin down in frustration, the door to the room creaked open. Startled, she turned around. Her heart stopped when she saw who was standing at the door. Mr. David Carter, the school's music teacher, who had studied at the prestigious Juilliard School. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't think anyone would be using this room," Jasmine quickly said, her face flushing with embarrassment. Mr. Carter smiled kindly and walked into the room at a relaxed pace. His gaze on Jasmine was focused but gentle, showing no signs of reproach or annoyance. "It's all right, Jasmine. Actually, I was passing by and happened to hear the sound of a violin coming from this room." Upon hearing this, Jasmine felt her face redden even more. She lowered her head in embarrassment. I just started learning the violin yesterday, sir. I know the sound is terrible." "Quite the opposite," Mr. Carter gently interrupted. "I think you're doing quite well for someone just starting, but your posture and the way you're holding the violin could use some adjustment. Would you mind if I helped you a bit?" Jasmine looked at him in surprise, her heart racing. She never imagined receiving help from such a renowned teacher. With a grateful nod, Jasmine said, "I would really appreciate it if you could show me." Mr. Carter calmly walked over to her and adjusted her posture, carefully guiding her fingers on the violin, showing her how to relax her wrist. His patient and thorough instructions made Jasmine feel more confident, and she began to draw the bow across the strings as he had taught her. The sound gradually became softer, and Jasmine felt a glimmer of pride in her heart. After a few moments of guidance, Mr. Carter stepped back, looking at Jasmine with a look of genuine respect. "Did you know, Jasmine, that I was once a promising student at Juilliard, but in the end, I had to give up my performing career due to a severe fear of the stage. I've always regretted not being able to overcome that fear." Jasmine looked at him, deeply moved by the unexpected sincerity of her teacher. She had never imagined that someone so talented and respected like Mr. Carter also had his own struggles and regrets. Mr. Carter smiled sadly. "But when I see you today, I realize that the challenges you are facing right now are a precious opportunity for you to explore and push past your own limits. I see in you a special strength, something that many people, even those who are talented, lack. That is resilience in the face of adversity." Jasmine felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she struggled to hold them back, speaking softly. "I'm not sure I can do this, sir. There are only a few days left, and I'm afraid everyone will keep laughing at me." "Listen to me, Jasmine," he said gently, but with firm determination. "Don't worry about those who want to see you fail. Instead, focus on why you picked up that violin. I am certain that, even with so little time, if you put your heart and soul into it, you will succeed, and I will help you quietly and as much as I can." "You will help me?" Jasmine looked at him with surprise and hope. "Yes," he replied with a warm smile, "because I see in you a natural talent, a special musical sensitivity. It's rare, Jasmine, and I believe that with the right guidance you'll leave everyone astonished." Mr. Carter's words felt like a fresh breeze, infusing Jasmine's soul with powerful energy and hope. Now, she didn't just have the support of her mother and Aisha, but also from a talented and kind teacher, someone who understood the struggles and obstacles she was facing. Mr. Carter placed his hand gently on Jasmine's shoulder, his gaze sincere. "Remember this, Jasmine. The greatest challenge isn't the mocking or the disdain from others, but the inner struggle within yourself. When you can overcome your own fears and doubts, nothing and no one will be able to stop you." Jasmine looked at him with deep gratitude, nodding lightly. In that moment, the heart of the small girl no longer had room for fear or doubt. Instead, she was ready to face the challenge, with the violin in her hands and the invaluable support of those who believed in her. The journey to conquer music had just begun, but now Jasmine was no longer alone. She had found her true teacher, one who not only taught her music but helped her understand the extraordinary strength that had always resided within her, waiting to be awakened. The encouraging words of Mr. Carter still echoed in Jasmine's mind as she left the small practice room at the end of that day. Despite her exhaustion, she felt a new fire of determination burning in her heart, like a guiding light cutting through the thick darkness. Jasmine believed that, with the help of good people like Aisha and Mr. Carter, she could turn the cruel mockery from Principal Stevens into a performance she could be proud of. However, she didn't realize that her rapid progress had unknowingly triggered envy and deep cruelty from those who were quietly watching her. From the principal's office, Veronica Stevens stared coldly through the window, watching the small figure of Jasmine walking under the afternoon light. Each confident step the young girl took only made her angrier. The plan to publicly humiliate Jasmine before the whole school was starting to unravel. Instead of despairing, Jasmine was showing signs of progress that were deeply troubling. This made Stevens uncomfortable and more furious than ever. At that moment, a knock on the door was heard, and Ms. Rachel Reynolds entered the room, her face reflecting a similar concern and frustration. She quickly walked over to Principal Stevens, her voice laced with anxiety but still cold and sharp. "Ms. Stevens, I think we may have underestimated Jasmine. I just saw Carter helping her. If this continues, our plan might completely fall apart." Stevens' gaze darkened, and she clenched the pen in her hand, her voice filled with venom. "I know David Carter well. He always enjoys playing the hero, protecting weak students. especially ones like Jasmine. But we can't let this happen. Jasmine must fail. It's the only way to protect our image and power in this school. Reynolds looked at Stevens, waiting for a more detailed plan. Stevens slowly stood up, walked to the window, and gazed out, her voice calculated and cold. Starting tomorrow, I want all the music rooms locked after school hours. No one is to use them without special permission from me. I also want you to increase Jasmine's workload and surprise quizzes. Make her exhausted so she doesn't have time to practice. Reynolds nodded in agreement, a cold smile spreading across her face. Understood, Ms. Stevens. I'll make sure Jasmine won't have the energy to even think about that violin. We must crush her will and make her understand that no one can oppose us. The cruel plan was quickly and ruthlessly put into action. The next day, when Jasmine eagerly returned to the practice room to rehearse, she was horrified to find that all the rooms were locked, with a notice from the principal's office on the door, only to be used with special permission from Principal Veronica Stevens. Jasmine's heart sank as frustration and anger surged within her. But when she tried to confront the principal, Stevens coldly responded, "Sorry, Jasmine, but the music rooms are only for students who truly deserve them. And I'm not sure you're one of them." That wasn't all. Jasmine quickly felt more pressure as Ms. Reynolds relentlessly assigned her difficult homework and surprise quizzes that no other students in the class had to face. Each time Jasmine failed to finish or made a small mistake, Reynolds would publicly mock her in front of the class, openly diminishing her abilities. Once, Jasmine had to stay up all night to complete a 10-page essay required by Reynolds. The next morning, when she handed in the assignment, Reynolds simply looked at her coldly before tearing the essay apart in front of the class, sneering, "I don't think this is your work, Jasmine. Do you really think you can fool me so easily?" Laughter echoed through the classroom, but Jasmine remained silent, struggling to hold back the tears. She felt more exhausted and hopeless than ever before. Yet, she gritted her teeth, reminding herself of the encouraging words from her mother, Aisha, and especially from Mr. Carter. This situation continued over the next few days, each day a new exhausting struggle. Jasmine realized that practicing was becoming increasingly difficult. No practice rooms, mounting homework, and constant ridicule from those she thought would protect her. But no matter how battered she was, Jasmine never gave up. At the end of each school day, Jasmine and Aisha had to find secluded corners outside the school grounds to practice. Some nights, under the dim streetlights in the park near her house, Jasmine would persistently draw the bow across the strings, the soft sounds filling the dark. But each time she felt herself growing stronger. One late evening, as she and Aisha were practicing under the pale moonlight, Jasmine smiled weakly and spoke to her closest friend. "They want to see me fail, but I won't let that happen, Aisha. The harder it gets, the more I have to show them that they can't beat me." Aisha gently placed her hand on Jasmine's shoulder, her eyes full of admiration and pride. "I know you can do it, Jazz. No matter what happens, I'll always be by your side, until you step onto that stage and blow everyone away." Those encouraging words fueled Jasmine's resolve to face the malicious plot from Principal Stevens and Miss Reynolds. Even as the pressure mounted, Jasmine decided to turn every challenge into an opportunity, proving that courage and belief in oneself would ultimately decide the final victory. The final days leading up to the performance passed quickly like a gentle spring breeze, but for Jasmine, every moment felt endless. Although Principal Stevens and Miss Reynolds continued to place more brutal obstacles in her path, Jasmine persevered, growing more determined with each act of oppression. However, on the morning of that day, with just one day left until the fateful concert, Jasmine received an unexpected call from Mr. Carter. Jasmine, after school today, I want you to come with me to a place. There's something important I think you should know before you step onto the stage tomorrow." Jasmine hesitated at the unexpected invitation, but in Mr. Carter's sincere and warm voice, she sensed something special waiting for her. After school, Jasmine quickly walked to the school gate where Mr. Carter was waiting for her by his old car. She sat in the passenger seat, feeling a mix of curiosity and excitement. The car rolled gently through familiar small streets and stopped in front of an old music shop, tucked quietly in the heart of the city. The faded wooden sign above the door read, "Rosetti's Music Store." The little shop had an antique charm, as though it held countless musical stories from generations past. Inside, Jasmine was immediately captivated by the cozy atmosphere, filled with old instruments carefully arranged on wooden shelves. The soft yellow light illuminated the pianos, guitars, and especially the violins, creating a warm and nostalgic ambiance. From behind the counter, an elderly man with silver hair and small glasses stepped forward, greeting them with a friendly smile. "David, it's been a long time," the man said, his voice deep yet enthusiastic. "Hello, Mr. Otto," Mr. Carter replied cheerfully, gently placing his hand on Jasmine's shoulder. "This is Jasmine Williams, the special student I mentioned to you on the phone the other day." Mr. Otto looked at Jasmine intently through his glasses, then smiled kindly. "Ah, Jasmine, I've heard so much about you. But I'm sure you'll be even more surprised when you find out the real reason you're here today." Jasmine was a little taken aback by this, her gaze turning toward Mr. Carter, searching for an explanation. Mr. Carter simply nodded gently, signaling for her to stay calm and patient. Mr. Otto walked into the back of the shop and returned moments later with an old violin carefully wrapped in a protective box. With tender hands, he opened the case in front of Jasmine. The small girl stared in awe at the beautiful violin, every curve and grain of wood touching her in a way she couldn't describe. "This violin once belonged to a very special player, your father, Mr. Michael Williams," Otto said gently, his eyes shining with affection and memories. "Your father brought this violin to me the day he decided to give up his music career to support his family." Jasmine's heart pounded, and her hands trembled as she touched the violin her father once owned. This was not just an ordinary violin. It held a past full of emotion and her father's silent sacrifices. Tears filled Jasmine's eyes as she tried to imagine her father playing, pouring his passion and talent into every note. "You know, Jasmine," Mr. Otto continued softly, "your father was a violin prodigy when he was young. I've never met anyone who played with so much heart as he did. But when your mother was pregnant with you, your father had to make the hardest decision of his life. He gave up his promising music career to take care of his family. The last time your father came to see me, he asked me to keep this violin, hoping that one day you would come and continue his unfinished dream." Jasmine stood frozen, tears silently streaming down her cheeks. In that moment, she finally understood the depth of her father's sacrifice, and why her mother always spoke of him with such pride, mixed with an unspoken regret. At that moment, Mr. Otto gently opened a small laptop on the counter and said softly, "There's one more thing I think you need to see before you step onto the stage tomorrow." Jasmine looked at the screen, her breath catching in her throat as her father's image appeared before her. It was an old video recorded during a performance at the prestigious Eastman School of Music. The young girl watched her father on stage, witnessing every masterful bowstroke and the way he lost himself in the music. The beautiful sound of the violin echoed in the shop, the music filling every part of her being. The video ended with thunderous applause, and Jasmine sat still, tears flowing freely down her face. She no longer felt pain or fear, but instead a deep sense of pride and an unwavering determination rising strong within her. Mr. Carter gently placed his hand on Jasmine's shoulder, speaking softly. "Jasmine, you are the one who will carry on your father's talent and dream. People like Principal Stevens and Miss Reynolds won't be able to stop you. You will step onto the stage tomorrow and show everyone that true power doesn't lie in authority or oppression, but in the heart full of determination and courage that you have." Jasmine lifted her head to look at him. Her eyes filled with a determination she had never felt before. In that moment, she knew that with the violin her father left behind, and the support from those who truly loved her, nothing could stop her from stepping onto that stage and continuing her father's unfinished dream that he had sacrificed to give her. The dazzling lights of the Westridge Auditorium shone brightly, as if trying to reveal every emotion on the faces of the hundreds of people sitting in anticipation. The space was packed with the audience, the whispers and murmurs rising like unpleasant undertows, everyone seemingly eager not to enjoy the music, but to witness the predicted failure of Jasmine. Among the crowd, the cold gaze of Principal Veronica Stevens and the mocking smile of Miss Rachel Reynolds were like sharp spears, waiting to pierce through the self-esteem of the small girl. Jasmine stood quietly backstage, her heart pounding, each beat like the sound of drums in the fierce internal battle. Her hands gripped the violin that once belonged to her father, the only thing that could give her any strength to fight the overwhelming fear rising within her. Suddenly, she heard familiar footsteps from behind. Turning around, Jasmine immediately recognized the tall, slender figure and the kind face of Mr. Carter. But standing beside him was a stranger, a man Jasmine had never met before. He wore a dark, elegant suit, his deep, wise eyes exuding a calm and composed demeanor. "Jasmine," Mr. Carter spoke gently, his eyes filled with encouragement. "I'd like to introduce you to an old friend of mine, Dr. Marcus Williams, the director of music at the Eastman School." Jasmine's eyes widened in astonishment, recognizing the name Eastman, the very place her father had studied and performed. Marcus Williams gave a warm and sincere smile, gently extending his hand to shake Jasmine's. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Jasmine," he said in a deep, friendly voice. "David has told me so much about you, and about your father as well. I couldn't miss your performance tonight." Jasmine's heart stirred intensely upon hearing her father's name. The unexpected appearance of this powerful and esteemed man made her more nervous, but it also sparked a strange sense of hope within her. Taking a deep breath, Jasmine softly replied, "Thank you so much. I will do my best not to disappoint everyone's expectations." Marcus Williams gently placed his hand on Jasmine's shoulder, his eyes full of encouragement. "I know you'll make it. You're Michael Williams' daughter. Music has always been in your blood." As the two men walked out, Jasmine turned inward, trying to steady herself. But just seconds later, the cold voice of Principal Stevens broke the fleeting calm, echoing from behind her. "Quite surprising, isn't it?" Stevens whispered, her voice as cold as ice. "I didn't expect you to pull someone from Eastman to watch you perform. But don't forget, no matter who shows up, what everyone is really expecting is your spectacular failure." Jasmine turned to face Stevens, locking eyes with her sharp, malicious stare. "No longer afraid," she replied calmly and strongly. "You may be right, Miss Stevens. Maybe people are here to see me fail, but I will do my best to show them that I'm worth more than what you think." Stevens smirked mockingly and turned away. In that moment, Jasmine realized clearly that she was no longer the shy girl, easily intimidated like before. The MC's voice on stage called her name, and Jasmine felt the surrounding noise fade away. It was as though everything that remained was just her and the violin in her hands, the blinding light before her like an endless sea of brightness, waiting for her to step into it. Slowly, Jasmine stepped onto the stage, each footstep heavy as lead. The lights shone directly on her, highlighting every trembling gesture. She noticed the gaze of hundreds of people fixed on her, eyes that were curious, skeptical, and waiting for her failure. In the front row, Stevens and Reynolds sat together, smug smiles on their faces, like wolves waiting for their prey to willingly step into their trap. But then Jasmine remembered the gentle face of her mother, the caring voice of Aisha, the passionate encouragement of Mr. Carter and Marcus Williams. Most of all, the image of her father playing the violin with passion and pride in the old video flashed vividly in her mind, bringing her an invisible but incredibly powerful strength. Taking a deep breath, Jasmine placed the violin on her shoulder, closing her eyes for a few seconds. She whispered in her heart, "Dad, help me turn this humiliation into glory." Immediately, the sound of the violin filled the air, resonating in the silent space. The first notes trembled with nervousness and anticipation, but quickly the sound became smoother, more emotional, gradually drawing everyone's hearts in. Jasmine lost herself completely in her own musical world, forgetting the eyes around her, forgetting the fear and doubt. The more she played, the more confident Jasmine became. Her playing soared, deepened, and became more emotional. The entire audience grew quiet, completely absorbed in the beautiful and moving melody Jasmine was creating. In that moment, no one saw Jasmine as the girl who had been mocked. Instead, she was a young artist performing with all her heart and soul. In the front row, Principal Stevens and Miss Reynolds paled, their eyes filled with panic as they realized their plan to humiliate Jasmine was falling apart. Meanwhile, Jasmine continued to play, the music lifting her above it all, turning pain and humiliation into a triumphant symphony. Tonight, Jasmine Williams was not just performing on stage with her violin. Tonight, she stood there to prove to everyone that courage and self-belief are the greatest strengths, capable of overcoming all cruelty and injustice in life. As the flowing notes of meditation from the violin filled the air, the entire auditorium immediately fell into a miraculous silence. The eyes that were once filled with curiosity and mockery shifted to astonishment and admiration. No one could have expected that the small girl, Jasmine Williams, whom everyone had predicted would fail miserably on stage, was now playing this piece with all her heart, passion, and extraordinary willpower. Jasmine closed her eyes, completely immersed in every melody she created. She no longer noticed the scrutinizing gazes of the audience, the whispers from the people seated below, nor the cold and menacing presence of Principal Stevens and Miss Reynolds. Now, she only knew the sound of the music flowing from her father's violin, the delicate tone that she had never imagined she could produce. In the front row, Principal Stevens and Miss Reynolds began to change their expressions. At first, the smug smiles on their faces were clear, but the longer they listened to Jasmine play, the more their smiles faltered, quickly vanishing altogether, replaced by panic and confusion. Stevens felt as if she were falling into a nightmare, her entire plan to humiliate Jasmine in front of the crowd disintegrating right before her eyes. "This can't be," Stevens whispered in a dry throat, her eyes wide with shock and concern. Reynolds, beside her, was no better, her face pale, her hands trembling as she clutched the armrest, as if trying to hold on to something to escape the unbelievable reality unfolding before them. Each note of the violin, each gentle melody, seemed to weave its way into the hearts of the listeners. Jasmine had turned that moment of humiliation into a performance of glory, not only with her innate talent but with her resilience and courage. The audience seemed to be drawn in by every sound she created, all of them silenced, unwilling to miss a single moment of this extraordinary performance. Just as the music reached its emotional climax, a sudden sound broke the magical moment, coming from the entrance of the auditorium. Everyone turned their heads in surprise and curiosity. Jasmine was startled, her eyes widening as she looked toward the back of the hall, but she maintained her composure, continuing to play, determined not to let the performance be interrupted. Two police officers in uniform and a woman dressed in a black suit briskly entered the hall. The woman was the state's education inspector, holding a thick file in her hands, her face stern and resolute. Her gaze immediately fixed on the front row, where Principal Stevens and Miss Reynolds were seated. A tense atmosphere enveloped the auditorium, signaling that something serious was about to unfold. Jasmine finished the piece with the final, resonant notes, gently lowering the violin, taking a small step back, her eyes not leaving the people who had just entered. Her heart pounded with anticipation and tension. But this time, it wasn't because of the performance. It was because of the unexpected turn of events happening right before her. The chief police officer stepped onto the stage, standing beside the education inspector, gently taking the microphone and speaking with authority. "Sorry for interrupting the performance, but we have something very important to announce right here." His sharp gaze swept over the audience, lingering on the stunned faces of Stevens and Reynolds. The education inspector stepped forward, opening the file she held, speaking clearly, each word weighted with gravity. "After a thorough investigation based on multiple pieces of evidence and witnesses, we are officially announcing that Ms. Rachel Reynolds and Principal Veronica Stevens of Westridge High School have committed serious acts of school violence, alongside racist behaviors toward several students, including Jasmine Williams." Whispers of astonishment immediately erupted in the auditorium. Principal Stevens jumped to her feet, her voice trembling with a mix of rage and panic. "You have no evidence. This is all a misunderstanding, a blatant slander." The inspector responded coldly, "I'm afraid, Ms. Stevens, but we have all the evidence." The security cameras in the classroom recorded the entire incident of Ms. Reynolds using physical force to make Jasmine sit on a broken chair, causing significant injury. We also have several student witnesses who have bravely come forward to report the abusive and discriminatory actions you both have committed. Stevens and Reynolds fell silent, their faces drained of color as they listened to the inspector's clear statements. The entire auditorium fell into a stunned silence, no one believing that such powerful and respected figures in the school could have acted so cruelly. The inspector continued, "Ms. Reynolds and Mrs. Stevens, we request that both of you leave the auditorium and accompany us for the investigation. You are officially suspended from your duties from this moment, pending legal proceedings." The auditorium erupted in shock. Stevens stood frozen, her legs shaking, unable to move a single step. Reynolds bowed her head, avoiding the furious and disappointed gazes from the students and parents. Two police officers stepped forward, leading them out of the auditorium amidst the astonished crowd. Jasmine stood on the stage, tears streaming down her face, but this time they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of release and victory. In that moment, she realized that she had crossed an important threshold where the truth and justice had spoken, restoring fairness for herself and all the students who had been oppressed in the shadows. From the audience, Mr. Carter and Dr. Marcus Williams both stood up, applauding loudly. One by one, the entire auditorium rose to their feet, the applause thunderous, as if to show Jasmine that she was not alone on this difficult journey. On a night that seemed like nothing more than a cruel joke of fate, Jasmine had composed a magnificent piece of music with her own determination and courage, and in that moment she truly touched the hearts of everyone present. As the resounding applause echoed throughout the auditorium, Jasmine stood on stage, her heart pounding with emotion. The bright lights illuminated the sparkling tears on her face, but for the first time, those tears were not of sorrow or shame, but of relief and boundless happiness. For the first time in a long time, Jasmine truly felt that justice was on her side. In the front row, where the shocking moment had just unfolded, 2 police officers coldly escorted Principal Stevens and Miss Reynolds out of the auditorium. In front of the astonished eyes of the students, parents, and other teachers, the 2 most powerful women at Westridge School were now forced to walk in shame and helplessness, their once mighty image now reduced to a thing of the past. Principal Veronica Stevens, the woman who had always maintained her calm, cold, and powerful demeanor, now had lost all traces of her arrogance. Stumbling beside the officer, her face pale, her eyes bewildered, as if she still couldn't believe what was happening. Beside her, Miss Rachel Reynolds lowered her head, avoiding every reproachful gaze, her lips pressed tightly together, her body trembling with the utmost shame. The sight silenced the entire auditorium for a moment, the shocking and unexpected truth too much for everyone to grasp. Many students began to whisper among themselves in astonishment and curiosity, mixed with words of reproach. No one could have imagined that beneath the perfect facade, these 2 powerful women could harbor such cruelty and discrimination. The education inspector stepped onto the stage, her voice strong and clear, pulling everyone's attention back to the serious matter at hand. I know this is a huge shock to all of you, as well as to all the parents present, but acts of school violence and racial discrimination are unacceptable. Principal Stevens and Ms. Reynolds have repeatedly abused their power to harm students, and we will ensure they face full responsibility before the law. The inspector's decisive statement sent a heavy silence over the auditorium. Jasmine looked down at the crowd, her eyes unexpectedly meeting the proud and emotional gaze of her mother, Grace Williams, who was quietly wiping away tears in the 3rd row. Nearby, her closest friend, Aisha, flashed the brightest smile Jasmine had ever seen. And not far away, Mr. Carter and Dr. Marcus Williams looked at her with affectionate and satisfied expressions. From the stage, Jasmine felt the profound change this moment was bringing. She realized that today's moment was not just her victory, but the victory of all those who had been oppressed and unjustly disregarded. Within days, the events at Westridge became a focal point of attention from the media and public. Authorities began a thorough investigation and quickly discovered that the violence and discrimination that Principal Stevens and Ms. Reynolds had committed were not isolated incidents. Through the investigation, more and more courageous students came forward to share their painful experiences, revealing additional evidence of the wrongdoing of these 2 women. Eventually, after tense interrogations and public hearings, Principal Stevens and Ms. Reynolds were officially charged and faced serious legal consequences. They were suspended indefinitely and faced criminal charges related to severe acts of violence and racial discrimination. In court, Stevens, who had always held her head high, now appeared helpless and bitter. She bowed her head, her lips trembling as she was forced to face the undeniable evidence. Reynolds, too, had lost her usual cold demeanor, replaced by a panicked and regretful expression, but by now it was all too late. Outside the courthouse, Jasmine held her mother's hand tightly, her eyes following the 2 women who had caused so much pain to her and her friends. In that moment, Jasmine realized that justice was not an impossible dream, but something that could be achieved when one dares to fight with strength until the end. Aisha stood next to Jasmine, gently placing her hand on her shoulder, whispering with deep emotion, "You did it, Jasmine. You didn't just win for yourself, but for all of us." Jasmine smiled softly, her eyes still fixed on the courthouse doors slowly closing behind Stevens and Reynolds. In that moment, she felt an enormous weight lift from her chest, and for the first time, she could breathe easy and free. Nearby, Dr. Marcus Williams approached Jasmine, his voice gentle but full of authority. "Jasmine, I know this has been an incredibly difficult journey for you, but it is your courage and resilience that have made others see the truth and justice. From now on, let your music soar, so that everyone can hear the story of true strength and courage." Jasmine nodded with pride and determination, her eyes shining with renewed hope. She understood that although the road ahead was still long, she was no longer alone. Justice stood by her, along with the unwavering support of her family, friends, and those who truly believed in her. Under the brilliant morning sunlight, Jasmine deeply felt that this moment marked the new beginning of her life, a life no longer overshadowed by the darkness of injustice, but one that would forever be illuminated by hope, resilience, and an unbreakable belief in herself. As the courthouse door closed behind Principal Stevens and Miss Reynolds, Jasmine felt that a painful chapter of her life had officially come to an end, making way for a bright future ahead. The words of Dr. Marcus Williams still echoed strongly in her mind. "Let your music reach far, so that everyone can hear the story of true strength and courage." And that future arrived faster than Jasmine had ever imagined. Just a few days after her historic performance at Westridge, Jasmine, along with her mother, stepped into the grand, prestigious office of the Eastman School of Music, where her father had once studied and placed his unfinished dreams. Dr. Marcus Williams was waiting for them there, his smile warm and eyes filled with pride. "Welcome to Eastman, Jasmine," Marcus Williams said, standing to greet them with enthusiasm. "I've watched thousands of students and young artists throughout my career, but it's rare for me to see a talent, determination, and character as exceptional as yours." Jasmine blushed, offering a shy smile. "I'm so grateful for your time today, but I'm not sure if I'm really capable of studying at such a prestigious place." Dr. Williams walked over, gently placing his hand on her shoulder, his gaze filled with trust. "Jasmine, what you've been through, what you showed us in your performance, is not only proof of your musical ability, but also a clear demonstration of the grit, resilience, and true artistic spirit inside you. Eastman won't just teach you how to play the violin, we'll help you become a true artist." He handed Jasmine an envelope, bearing the prestigious Eastman School of Music emblem. His voice was warm and sure. "This is a full scholarship to Eastman for you, Jasmine. It covers not just tuition, but also room and board, along with special training. Eastman believes you deserve this, and we hope you'll continue your father's unfinished dream." Jasmine opened the envelope, her eyes trembling with emotion as she read the official confirmation of the prestigious scholarship. Her heart swelled with happiness, and she turned to look at her mother. Grace Williams was wiping away tears of pride and joy, holding her daughter's hand tightly. "Your father would be so proud of you, Jasmine," Grace whispered softly, her voice choked with emotion. "You've turned all the pain and challenges into something miraculous, so that today you can stand here ready to conquer new heights." In the days that followed, Jasmine's story quickly became a phenomenon across the media. Major newspapers published inspiring articles about the young girl who had once been a victim of racial discrimination and school violence, but now had become a symbol of courage and overcoming adversity. From victim to music phenomenon, the story of Jasmine Williams, one reputable newspaper wrote. A popular television channel aired a special feature titled The Violin That Overcame the Darkness. Westridge Student Stuns the Community. Radio shows, podcasts, and social media forums continuously shared her moving and inspirational journey. In a live television interview, Jasmine shared for the first time about the challenges and pain she had endured, as well as the reason she decided to overcome everything. "There were times I thought I couldn't go on," Jasmine said sincerely, her eyes glistening with tears. "But every time I felt that way, I remembered what my mom said. I remembered my father's face full of hope and belief, and I knew I couldn't give up." Standing beside Jasmine in the interview were Dr. Marcus Williams and Mr. David Carter. When asked why he decided to help Jasmine overcome her difficulties, Mr. Carter answered with pride in his eyes, "I've seen too many talented students who couldn't break through the psychological barriers and societal prejudices to pursue their dreams. But Jasmine is different. She not only has innate musical talent, but also extraordinary willpower, always pushing forward despite the challenges. She taught me that courage is the most important thing to succeed." Jasmine's words, along with the support of those by her side, quickly spread, creating a powerful wave of inspiration across the community. Many young people wrote letters to Jasmine, expressing their gratitude and sharing how her story had helped them overcome their own life struggles. Within weeks, Jasmine became an inspirational symbol, representing young people who dared to fight for fairness and justice. She received numerous invitations to perform at major cultural events, where she always shared her story through the emotional and sincere melodies of her violin. At Eastman, Jasmine quickly integrated and became one of the Academy's brightest students. Top music teachers highly praised her innate talent and the incredible maturity in her playing. Marcus Williams, who had taught her father and was now her dedicated mentor, always believed Jasmine would soon become one of the greatest violinists of the new generation. During the opening ceremony of the academic year at Eastman, Jasmine stood on the large stage, gently playing the violin as the applause of thousands echoed around her. Looking down at the audience, her heart filled with a deep sense of emotion as she caught the affectionate gaze of her mother, Aisha, Mr. Carter, and Dr. Marcus Williams, those who had always believed in her and stood by her through this miraculous journey. Amidst the bright spotlight at Eastman that day, Jasmine understood that this was just the beginning of a long journey ahead, one where she would not only play the violin to pursue her passion, but also to raise a powerful voice about courage, resilience, and an unwavering belief in justice and the future. As Jasmine began stepping into the bright path at Eastman Westridge School, where she had once studied, was undergoing a transformative change. Following the infamous departure of Principal Veronica Stevens and teacher Rachel Reynolds, a powerful and profound wave of change began to take shape in the school that had once been overshadowed by injustice and prejudice. The leader of this crucial revival was Dr. Eleanor Gaines, a respected female principal, known for her fair and progressive leadership style. With years of experience in the field of education and a deep understanding of social issues, Dr. Gaines immediately recognized that her top priority was to rebuild the culture and core values of Westridge. On her first morning as the new principal, Eleanor Gaines held a school-wide meeting. Standing on stage with calm dignity and authority, her clear, strong voice resonated throughout the auditorium. "Dear students, teachers, and parents, I know we've just gone through a difficult and challenging time. But the events that have occurred are a necessary wake-up call for us to better understand our responsibilities to the younger generation. From today, I commit to making Westridge not just a place to study, but a safe home where each of your talents and dignity will be respected and nurtured." Immediately after Dr. Gaines began implementing a series of bold and decisive reforms. New policies were quickly put into place, with particular focus on fighting racism and protecting the rights and dignity of students. Regular training sessions for teachers on ethics, human rights, and diversity were organized to ensure that no teacher would ever repeat the actions of Stevens or Reynolds. But what excited the students the most was the serious investment in developing the arts programs. Gaines believed that the arts had a unique power to connect people, breaking down boundaries of race and social status. Under her direct supervision, the music and arts rooms at Westridge were completely renovated, equipped with modern instruments and facilities to best serve the students. Mr. David Carter, who had quietly supported Jasmine during her hardest days, was appointed as the school's director of arts. Carter created a special arts program called Music and Justice. This program aimed to discover and support young talents from underprivileged backgrounds while helping them understand the social roles and responsibilities of an artist. Among all these positive changes, Jasmine Williams became a living symbol of the transformation at Westridge. Although she no longer attended the school, her story of resilience, courage, and extraordinary success had inspired many students at Westridge. They began to believe more in their own abilities, daring to stand up for what was right and courageously pursue their passions. One afternoon, Jasmine received a special invitation from Principal Gaines to return to Westridge to share her story with the new students. As she walked through the school's doors, Jasmine immediately felt a completely different atmosphere than before. Gone were the scrutinizing and doubtful glances, replaced by friendly smiles, admiring and proud eyes. When Jasmine stepped onto the stage, the auditorium erupted in enthusiastic applause from hundreds of students. Jasmine stood still for a moment, trying to hold back the overwhelming emotions, then began to recount her journey, one full of hardship but also great meaning. Not long ago, I was a student at this school, feeling hopeless and losing faith because of the injustices that were done to me. But I learned that no one and nothing can determine our future except ourselves. I'm so happy to see Westridge today changing every day, and I hope you all take this opportunity to grow, to pursue your dreams, no matter how difficult they may seem. After Jasmine's speech, Principal Gaines stood up, looking at Jasmine with a loving gaze, and emotionally spoke to the entire school. Jasmine is the clearest example of how we can overcome prejudice and limitations to rise above. I hope her story will be an endless source of inspiration for all of you at Westridge, today and in the future. At the end of the ceremony, many students surrounded Jasmine, sharing their personal stories and thanking her for giving them the strength to face their challenges. Jasmine felt her heart warm in a way she had never experienced before. She realized that the suffering of her past had now become motivation for so many others. That was the greatest gift she could ever imagine. Leaving Westridge at the end of the day, Jasmine stopped in front of a small statue newly erected in the school courtyard, with the inscription, "Dedicated to Jasmine Williams and all those who have courageously fought for justice and equality." Looking at the statue and the inscription, Jasmine smiled gently, her heart filled with pride and emotion. Westridge was no longer just a place where she had suffered, but had become a symbol of the most powerful and positive change, and Jasmine understood that her own courage and resilience had contributed to making this change. Under the soft glow of the evening sun over Westridge, Jasmine walked with a light and happy heart, ready to continue her journey ahead, one that would spread faith and hope wherever her music could reach. As the gentle evening light covered the Westridge campus, it felt like a chapter full of turmoil in Jasmine's life was finally closing, making way for a future filled with promise. She walked lightly, carrying the happiness of seeing her old school revive strongly after the storm of darkness. Now, the journey Jasmine was about to continue was not just for her, but for all those who had been oppressed and treated unjustly, a new journey filled with glory and hope. The days that followed passed by quickly, pulling Jasmine into a passionate whirlwind of music and grand plans at Eastman. The atmosphere at the academy was always vibrant, filled with intense rehearsals, formal concerts, and numerous important cultural events she never imagined she would participate in. But Jasmine understood that the challenges at Eastman were what she had always longed for, to prove that after everything she had gone through, this was where she truly belonged. On one early winter morning, as snowflakes gently covered the trees outside the practice room, Jasmine was called to Dr. Marcus Williams' office. Sitting across from him, she could feel a strong, empowering energy radiating from his deep and kind eyes. "Jasmine, next week there will be a very important performance at Eastman Hall," Marcus Williams said gently, his voice filled with trust and seriousness. "This will be your first performance as an official student of Eastman before the entire academic board and renowned music critics. I believe this is an excellent opportunity for you to officially showcase your talent." Upon hearing those words, Jasmine shivered with nervousness, but immediately responded with a determined nod. "I understand, sir. I will do my best to live up to your trust and everyone's expectations." The day of the performance finally arrived, and Eastman Hall was packed with the audience. The honored seats were filled with top music critics, renowned professors, and other outstanding students at Eastman. On the brilliantly lit stage, Jasmine appeared confidently in an elegant white dress, her father's violin resting gently on her shoulder, glowing like a part of her very soul. Before she began, Jasmine gently closed her eyes, deeply feeling the breath of music in her heart. In that moment, she suddenly remembered her father, a man with incredible musical talent who had to sacrifice his dreams to provide for his family. Jasmine took a deep breath, reminding herself that today she would perform not just for herself, but to continue the dream her father had left unfinished. The first notes of meditation rang out, filled with emotion, quickly filling the entire hall. Jasmine's playing was not just sound, it became a powerful voice of freedom, courage, and national pride. She played as though telling the story of her life, from the dark days of injustice to the moment when the light of justice and hope shone through. In the audience below, everyone sat in silence, fully immersed in the beautiful and emotional melodies created by the young girl. Dr. Marcus Williams sat in the front row, his eyes gleaming with intense pride. Beside him, Grace Williams quietly wiped away tears of happiness, her heart deeply moved as she watched her daughter stand firm on the grand stage, doing what her father had always dreamed of. When the final notes ended, the entire hall erupted into a long, thunderous round of applause. Jasmine bowed her head to thank the audience, and her heart swelled with an overwhelming emotion that was hard to put into words. This wasn't just an ordinary performance. This was the meaningful beginning of a future she had chosen and fought for. After the performance, Jasmine stepped off the stage, where many audience members stood waiting to meet her, expressing their admiration and respect for her story. The sincere compliments, warm hugs, and emotional gazes made Jasmine realize that what she was doing truly mattered, not just in music, but in inspiring and empowering so many others. Later that evening, after the hall had mostly emptied, Dr. Marcus Williams gently approached Jasmine, smiling warmly. "You did wonderfully today, Jasmine. Your father would be so proud to see you standing on stage performing like this." Jasmine nodded gently, smiling back. "Thank you, sir. Thank you for always believing in me and guiding me. I will continue to strive not only to carry on my father's dream, but also to spread the message of courage and inner strength that lies within each of us." As Jasmine left Eastman Hall, she walked slowly under the soft light of the moon. She gently held her violin close, feeling more than ever that this instrument was no longer just a musical tool. It was a voice of freedom, a living symbol of strength and national pride that she carried in her heart. In that moment, Jasmine realized that no matter how many challenges and hardships lay ahead, she would always stand firm. For now, she was not just a young artist, but a symbol of courage, resilience, and unwavering belief in justice and hope. And so, under the shimmering lights of that magical winter night, Jasmine's new journey officially began. A journey filled with promise, brilliance, and boundless possibilities. Thus, the emotional and resilient journey of Jasmine Williams concluded with a beautiful ending, delivering a powerful message of courage, resilience, and the hidden strength within each of us. Jasmine, once a mocked and discriminated student, rose strong to become a talented young artist, inspiring countless others. What about you? What do you think of Jasmine's extraordinary journey? If you were her, would you have the courage to stand up against injustice and pursue your own dreams? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, share this meaningful story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next inspiring stories. Thank you for always supporting and being with us. See you in the next stories.